What's up, Hiroshi? Let's light this candle. Very excited here for the Bladtcast, and we come here to celebrate the Dennis Miller option, not to bury it, although we will be doing that too. Bladtcast 413, All Good Things Part 9, and if you're a true fan of the Bladtcast, you understand why it's Part 9, and go ahead and jump in the chat and tell us why you remember this being Part 9 of All Good Things. I might have some swag left in the swag store to share with anyone. What I will not give anyone is my very sweet Manscaped shirt, which if you are a fan of the Dennis Miller option, you should appreciate on many levels, but something you will appreciate on all the levels, the one, the only, Lindsey K. Floyd. Lindsey, welcome back to the Bladtcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm wondering if you might consider giving me the Manscaped shirt, because I feel like I have a fonder memory of it than you.
I think you might have a less fond memory of
no, I think it's one of my favorite memories.
The Manscaped experience. Well, to be fair, I received an entire swag kit from our friends at Manscaped, so I could give you the shirt unless you feel like you would want some of the accoutrements for the trimming.
The tools.
Keep in mind that they're for men. Okay, so
I mean, ladies need tools too.
Not these tools.
These are heavy duty, huh?
Yeah, exactly. We've already got some friends in the chat. Let's say hi to Derek, who just he's bringing the fire. Matt R, more like the flaming. And of course, Dominicus Saxon, primed and waiting. Glad to see tens of us are here. This is a lot, honestly. This is a lot for me. I do a lot of live streaming.
Yeah.
This is a high number. Dominicus Saxon also wants a listening fez. I do have a listening fez, but I don't have any to give away. And look who's here. Corby. Here for the awesomeness. We always appreciate Corby in there. And Derek agrees that the Manscaped ad read was hilarious. Could not stop laughing. Anyway, so I'm glad to see so many people turning out. There were a lot of people who said on Twitter that they'd be here that I'm still waiting for. And our great friend Humble Painter says, sorry, no donuts this time around. I still love you. He sent us like a box of fancy donuts when the radio show ended. And I'm talking like super fancy donuts. And they were really good. And this time around, nothing.
I'm sad.
Yeah.
Gene
Beretta points out that he's got 55 people in his room with him. So
how many of them are puppets though?
Great question. And Corby says, someone told me you would be giving away your Dennis Miller doll to the one with the most comments. I intend to win. I should have brought that upstairs. If it were anywhere nearby, I would go get it, but I'd have to actually look for it. I have the Dennis Miller doll that maybe I'll do a future Bladtcast where I share it and I let everybody see it, and we can even talk to it. You know? So that would be great. In any case, Lindsey,
yes.
I wanted to see, we're about 5 minutes in, or really more like 4, and nothing's made you cry yet, and I feel like it's only a matter of time. So why don't you take a minute and talk about what the show meant to you, but I want you to start with what you knew about Dennis Miller before they said, hey, you're going to produce this guy's podcast.
Wow. I actually didn't see that question coming. I knew of him originally because he was the other like radio show using the studio when I worked at Loveline. So we were there, 10 p.m., 9 p.m. to midnight or 1. And as someone who had learned to run the soundboard there and done a bunch of other things in that studio, it was always a big deal that the soundboard be reset for this guy, Dennis Miller, in the morning, because it was just like, it was a particular thing. So I remember that. And then largely not much, because I'm very disconnected from the world and I'm working on my pop culture in general. But gosh, when he came over to the podcast network where I'm at now, was working with Newt Gingrich, and it was a nightmare. I'd been hearing about Miller coming over, but it really took a while for you guys to like confirm the contract. So it was kind of an up in the air thing for quite a while.
There was some negotiation on the contract. We had been somewhere else before we were Westwood One.
Exactly.
But anyway, continue your thoughts.
No, so just finally the contract got signed, and my boss at the time, Ted Woods, was like, "Hey, do you want to stay with Newt or do you want to do Dennis? I think you're going to want to do Dennis." And so I went with it. It's been amazing, or it was amazing, I guess.
And I've known Ted for a long time, and he probably chimed in to say that here's the catch: you're going to have to do this show with this guy who thinks he's the producer. And he's going to try and do a lot of work. He's probably going to tell you how to do things. And he's really old and not fun to work with. Is that what Ted told you?
Yeah. Most of that has been true about you too.
100%. I was such a busybody. I booked almost all the guests on the show, and that's very, very impolite. We will.
That's really helpful, honestly, since. I guess in a way I'm much more, I've been a technical producer while making some content or chiming in right as a third mic, but largely I've been like technical side, getting the connections connected and tested, and then editing everything, all the sound and mixing and all that.
Yes. Well, also joining us now is our fourth mic for the show, the one, the only, the voice of the Dennis Miller option, Farad Muhammad, listed as Don Fardo.
That's right. Musical guest Bruce Springsteen. Okay, that's enough of that. Hello, Christian and Lindsay. How you doing there today?
Hi.
We're doing great. I'm glad you're able to pop in and join us.
Absolutely.
There was some great reaction. You recorded a special intro and outro for the final episode, which I'm sure everybody's heard. But most of the attention has been rave reviews for the voicemail you left, especially for how you ended it.
Yeah, I got a lot of attention.
I think including Kurt Schlichter texted me how much he thought that was funny.
Really? Nice.
Yeah. So what did you so let's talk about the fact that you ended your voicemail, and you heard Dennis laugh, like all legitimate laughs. The fact that you ended your voicemail, and Death to America.
Yeah, that's I consider that to be like the punchline to like a 10-year long joke. That I think one of the first times I relayed a message to Dennis, either through Twitter or via the live phone. Afterwards, Dennis just asked you kind of in confidence, but on the air, basically saying, "So Farad, he kinda," it's like.
Yeah. And even in recent years, you'd be in the studio. He's like, he's still Kaida, right? I mean, he asked me that not that long ago, within the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
And I think I said that you were in the ISIS reserves. I think.
Yes. The ISIS reserves. Yes.
That's what you said.
So I figured that, in order to close out my last voicemail, I decided to just play, steer into the skid and play, and then just put a little button on that joke there. So I was quite pleased that the reaction to it was as well liked as it was.
Well, I hope you weren't too upset that your voice wasn't the actual last voice on the podcast.
No, I'm good.
we had some editorial decision. Lindsay and I we drove up to Dennis's house last Thursday, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And we listened to some voicemails, and we're like, we have to include this last call from AJR. And I think we're going to talk with him a little bit later. It's a complete 100% oversight on my part that we forgot to play Jason Blair's Chimp Doctor call. And so then that's where the idea came from of like, well, what if the last sound of the Dennis Miller option is the Chimp Doctor noise, which I'm not allowed to make on camera, by the way. I don't know if
it's like it's copyright there.
That's the conceit of Chimp Doctor, is that you can never hear that. You can never see me make that noise. That's just not the way that it works. So
gotcha.
And I threw in my 2 cents on what you did record though, because I was reminded, you said the way Dennis used to end Weekend Update, that's news, we are out of here. And I was like, oh yeah, but I always liked how on the HBO show he would do this whole long thing and be like, fuck it, who wants pie?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I love the emphasis in there. I like when you use your big boy announcer voice to use dirty words for odds.
Which is rare, both on air as well as just in real life. I'm not that much of a cursor, but but I've been a fan of Dennis's ever since his days on SNL, and so I figured, why the hell not? So,
comedy must rule in all cases. By the way, Sam Whitfield, appreciated hearing your laugh. Professional voicemailer Corby says your voicemail almost killed me.
Okay, nice.
People are very excited to see you there. And Derek said, "Yeah, I LOL'd so hard at that. That would."
Good. Yeah, I'm glad a lot of people got a lot of laughs out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And hey, Chris in the chat liked the ending to the podcast, so he appreciated the fact that Chimp Doctor it was there. So did Corby. And we've got a lot of good friends in here, so it's a lot of fun. This is a full chat. I usually won't say the number of people that are watching, but we've got 40 people watching right now, which is very exciting to have so many of them. So Farhad, I wanted to sorry, Uvula Scrimshaw chimes in. I haven't listened yet. I like spoilers. Good, because you're going to get
good.
Always good to see you there, Scrimshaw. So, we only have a few minutes for any of our guests that we're going to have on. But Farhad, I wanted to kind of let you talk a little bit about what the radio show and the podcast meant for you, but then also the fact that you were someone who volunteered to do our production for both incarnations of this podcast. Did you do it for Red Circle Sports, or did we not have one?
I don't think you had one for Red Circle Sports,
but once we started doing the Dennis Miller option, I think you offered to do it.
Absolutely,
and I was very quick to point out I had no budget to work with, so this would be what we call gratis.
Gratis, yes.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I didn't have a voiceover agent back then, so you managed to get in under the right on the wire. But and also because it was a pleasure and honor to do this for both you as well as for Dennis. The radio show and the podcast, the radio show more specifically had been like appointment listening for me. I was about to say appointment television, which is not right, but no, I mean, I would listen into the Dennis Miller radio show every single weekday. At one point during my while I was listening to it, I was laughing apparently so loud that the HR guy kind of said that to me and said, "Hey, could you tone that down a bit?" So, but yeah, it was cool, but yeah, I mean, it was really great that I got to interact with you and Dennis and Sabes and all the rest of them there.
Agent Starling,
Starling, that's right. Liev, yes, that's what I was trying to think of there.
Yeah.
And
very easily forgotten, Liev.
Yeah. But no, the fact I was able to interact with everybody either via Twitter or on the phone, and then later on in person, when I actually made an appearance on the radio show a couple of times, I was just as Dennis would say, like a pig in slop.
There was a really fun day where we were at that Museum of Broadcast
Communications. Yeah, that's right.
Broadcast Communications, and it was Dennis, myself, you, and Rob Lorich. We were all there.
Yes.
And I was talking about this not that long ago. I was actually telling Dennis this story. We had Rob on the day before, and he was in. He did some voices. He'd been a regular caller, and he would post a lot on the message boards. And I was walking around Chicago with him, and he starts doing the Gene Simmons voice. I'm like, where the fuck was that on the radio? So I had to tell Dennis, I'm like, there's a reason he's back. It's worth it. Trust me. So we had him trot out the Gene Simmons voice. And
okay. So
that was the first time he did it, because he had done it for me off the air because he knew I liked Kiss. And I'm like, that's like, that's like such a great voice. How are we not using it?
I have that.
Yeah. So I was glad to also get that included in there. And Rob is very meticulous. He spent like the whole weekend on his 5-minute voicemail. And Dennis enjoyed that voicemail so much that he asked me to email it to him, and he played it for his wife. But he always he was very glad to hear from you. He always enjoyed having you spend time. You were one of the few people who joined Lindsey and I in the studio.
That's true.
Everybody else were like, people who had been booked as like guests. You were the only audience member we ever had for the podcast.
I'm known as Chicago's greatest audience member, so for a reason.
You should be. Yeah, exactly. Well, Farhad, I feel like we won't be saying goodbye, and not just because I also have production that I've used, and in fact, it will have been at the beginning of this audio version, the audio version of this episode. People will hear the Bladtcast production that you did some time ago, but
nice.
I'm sure we'll still talk, and we will interact, of course. Justin Fincher wants people to know where they can keep up with you. Where are you at, and what any of your upcoming gigs are.
Well, my main gig at this point, usually I would say I would voice the Dennis Miller option, but that's no longer an option. I do a lot of motion graphics work for the people over at Channel Awesome, so you could probably see my work there. As I mentioned before, I do have a voiceover agent, so I'm hoping that through my connections with the people over at Big Mouth Talent, you'll be able to hear my voice on a commercial or television show near you at some point in time in the future. But right now, that's those like the major things in the hopper for this point.
Right. Well, exactly. But we'll just keep our eyes out for you on Farhad, just at Farhad Muhammad on
at Farhad
Twitter.
Muhammad, yeah. On Twitter, Instagram, all the rest of those there, yeah.
Right. A little bit of everything. And Farhad, you actually in the DMZ Facebook group, you actually started a great conversation, which you should probably see right there. You asked a very important question. You good? Which,
good?
Is definitely a reference from the old radio show that I think a lot of people will remember. It's just the way that so many voicemails ended at that time. You good? So, there was a lot of feedback, and a lot of people were not doing good because they didn't appreciate it. But Farhad, as Dennis would often say, hit your knees, boys. Every day. Every day. Hit your knees. that you're not me. And we had a delightful lunch at a Mexican restaurant for Rod, Lindsey, and I. And it was the first time that I ever saw Lindsey have an alcoholic drink.
Was that the first time?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was in the middle of the day. It was a work day. It was a lunch. Usually I only saw you at work. And, then the Bladtcast Christmas party changed how many drinks I had seen you had.
It went from 1 to 2, right?
200? No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Farhad, it is always a treat to chat with you and to hear hear that laugh that even Conan O'Brien appreciates that laugh. As his new favorite guy, even though I guess that was like a decade ago. But
3 years, close enough.
We'll talk soon though.
Absolutely.
There's always so much going on in the and I'm looking forward to those late night with David Letterman style bumpers for the Bladtcast. The next time you get an opportunity to make one. For me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Although I don't think you can eat in restaurants right now. So, but when you can.
Yeah, after 2021, sure.
2023. Anyway, thanks so much, Farhad Muhammad, the voice of the Dennis Miller option. Sam Whitfield pointed out that it was actually Will Sterling who did the voiceover for Red Circle Sports. He was the original producer for that show, so that makes sense. Patty wants to know, what is Lorch doing? He's a pro who needs showcasing. I definitely agree with that, but he's not on Twitter. I think he got kicked off for real, but you can find him on Instagram. I think it's RJ's Photo Pix, PIX. I'm fairly sure. Chris really appreciated the Gene Simmons thing. And Jacob wants to know, where did Lindsey get a Dr. L kite? Hashtag Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Do you want to tell people where you are and that this might not be your
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referencing. I assume it's something here. I'm sitting in my boyfriend's office at his distillery in San Diego. So this is all his stuff.
Yeah, so it's his stuff. So if you think anything back there is cool, it'll tell you how cool Lindsay's boyfriend is.
Yeah, yeah. There's a few posters I brought. You just can't see them.
Right, exactly. Norm says you had to re-listen to that final Gene Simmons voicemail because he's so good. And hey, look at this, Tim in San Diego. Hey, Christian. That's all he said. But we love Tim.
A local.
Always good to hear from him. So let's see. Patrick, I was feeling bad for the end of Miller's podcast until I heard about him selling his Montecito estate.
Yeah.
How's that? Yeah. He got a couple dollars for that. I thought that was really fun. And what ended up being, I guess, the second to last episode, Aaron Berg came on and he just went right for Dennis.
Right for it. Yeah.
The real estate jugular. It was very funny. And nobody laughed harder at that than Dennis. I think you hear, the idea that he sold his house for as much as he did, is not lost on, a kid from Pittsburgh who has talked about how much he enjoyed having things like tuna slop for dinner and always to the horror of his wife, always insists on having Miracle Whip in the fridge instead of actual mayonnaise. So, I thought that was indeed very funny. And Jacob Downey would hire Farad for a voiceover, hire him to read his eulogy. Corby says the person who Dennis personally said you're good to. I appreciated that. Yeah. So, Lindsay, let's sort of talk about, you start producing this show and you start talking more and more, but which I've told you, Dennis really enjoyed that. He liked your laugh. He thought you had a great laugh. And on the old radio show, we had our friend Sarah, who originally handled our website. And when she would be in studio, he loved the fact that there would be a female laugh and not just my fake laugh. There would be like a real, sincere laugh. And I think that's what he liked, that it was a genuine, pure laughter, not jaded by show business laughter like the one that I do. So I think that's why he really liked it. But talk a little bit about, starting to chime in more on the show and, maybe how you weren't sure at first if that was what you should be doing.
I think it's funny because, of course, I wasn't at all prepared or expecting it, nor did I think I should be doing it. I've been producing podcasts and working in radio for a while now, obviously nowhere near as long as you two, but I've been doing it, but obviously not with like a 5-time Emmy winner, not with someone with so many accolades. So that was really exciting.
And 3 Cable Ace Awards.
Exactly. And MTV Award too.
That's true. Well, but he only got that for hosting.
You know what?
That's the only reason. He hosted the MTV Awards 2 years back to back, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just, no, I did not expect to be there. And I was definitely intimidated. I just felt like I was working with 2 people who really knew what they were doing and had been successful at it. So I didn't want to, fuck it up.
Yeah, no. I appreciate that that you were there. I thought it added to the dynamic that Dennis and I have had for a long time. I mean, I've known him for 16 years, and from the start of the radio show, I would talk a little bit, but I guess from about 2010 onward, I was the only other voice that he really talked to consistently. Once Salman left the show, so I think that we had basically gotten as much as we could out of that, but and I mean, it was never lost on me how much he valued my input, not just the fact that he would say sometimes that things were so funny and, the praise, which was always welcome, but he was first starting to do the original version of the podcast, which was it was a sports podcast called Red Circle Sports for Podcast One. And he asked me before, is like, could you just sit in the first one? Because I didn't work on it in any capacity. That was I was just like, oh yeah, I mean, I don't work for that company. So he just asked if I could sit in because it would make it easier for him. And then before we even did the show, he then asked if, anytime that I had, I think we only did it once a week at first. So anytime that I was free on, say, Monday, if I could sit in, he'd appreciate it. And fortunately for him, unfortunately for me, I wasn't working on anything. I was there every recording day for first that show, and then when it turned into, we would do one day of Red Circle Sports and then one day of the Dennis Miller Option, and then it just turned into 2 days of the Dennis Miller Option. But it was only a couple of weeks, and then he felt bad, and he started paying me himself, like directly. I got paid through Dennis's company. I never got paid by that company. So that's always, I think, something worth mentioning, and Dennis has always been great. There have been times where for various shows, he's always known that there's some extra money that could have gone around that maybe didn't. Companies make these kind of decisions sometimes over the years, and he's always been really good about that. So, there are no complaints about that also. And just having fun on the air was the real treat. And I think that, interestingly, I think everybody knows that, we have fun on the air, but when we did the last show, he was being really nice. And then he told me to go fuck myself, which I thought was very funny. Right. But then I told Lindsey this. He called me after and he's like, I didn't mean that. I was just joking. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's fine. Like, that's our thing. I'm not upset, but he still called. And I don't know. I thought that was fun. I thought so anyway.
He's got a good heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so we referenced it a little while ago. That we went up to the house, and we had the occasion to go up there a few times. We had to record up there for technical reasons or to fix something or whatever. I'm going to miss those trips to that house that he doesn't own anymore.
No, it's a good bummer.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Yeah. So talk a little bit about those trips.
Oh,
like
well,
we would drive up like 90 miles.
Yeah, I had to sit in the car with Christian for an hour and a half each way, so that was pretty rough. I'm
sure it was.
But no, it was fun. I mean, Dennis has an amazing, beautiful house, and it's always great, of course, to see him in person. We'd been doing that regularly when he first started the Larry King show, but after a while, they got him equipment to his house, so we weren't seeing him every week in LA. And so, anytime we have the chance to go up to Santa Barbara, that's been fun to see him and, have a little road trip. And
yeah, I really liked doing when he was doing the TV show when we would go to Glendale. I know you had to drive all the way to Glendale, but that was much closer for me. But I also liked because we would get a lot of guests in studio. And I would, it was a lot of like, who do they have booked for that show? And we would kind of pollinate because it's like, well, I have this person for the TV show. For the podcast, we would trade, like we had Leno, they got Leno, we had Gene Simmons, they got Gene Simmons, and they had actually been told no by Gene Simmons' publicist. But then I was like,
wow. But you greased that door, huh?
I did. So,
and
yet I still don't work on that show, but that's all right. So that was, so that was always fun to do that. And, we would, Dennis almost always wanted to get Shake Shack when we were there. And that was always fun. We'll talk a little bit more about our travels with Dennis, but joining us now is Gene from Philly, who has an interesting display name, Christian Floyd. Not to be confused with Floyd Vivino, Uncle Floyd of New Jersey UHF fame.
Good call.
Gene,
leave it to the engineer to have the worst audio in the show.
Without the microphone.
Impossible. I'm sitting in a warehouse, really, you've got to have me be. And I love your setup there. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I see a lot of I see some familiar faces there. Now, Gene, you kicked off the farewell voicemails. I wanted to start weeding them in. I didn't want to save them all for the last episode because correctly, I assumed that at a certain point he was just like, "You good?" So
right.
But he liked yours, and I know how much attention to detail you put into those, and you do like to kind of workshop those a little bit, but were you happy with the reaction?
I improv them. I go out, on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can I get a couple of minutes of stage time? I have a voicemail that I want to workshop here at the improv. Yeah,
I have them turn the lights down just so it's audio.
Yeah, you go to Helium Comedy Club to try out.
Look at you, Helium Comedy Club. How do you know that?
I've heard comedians plug gigs before.
Oh, okay.
I've also heard of zanies, So, but talk a little bit about getting that kind of reaction and some of the reactions you've been able to get over the years from just your calls and voicemails to the radio show and then the podcast.
Well, it got addictive really quickly because I think I made my first call in maybe the second week of his radio show. And it went over really well. And I just thought, like a lot of people, it's a high when you get a professional comedian to laugh at something you do. So then it became almost a weekly thing. And then you were just kind enough to let me continue to contribute even pre-recorded things to the show. And it was always just a high to hear him laugh. And also, of course, if it didn't go over well, you were ready to jump out a window. And so I was texting you to just like, oh, Jesus, I really fucked that one up,
Yeah, no, I mean, and I remember that especially from the earliest days of the radio show when I didn't talk that much. And if I chimed in and it didn't go over, I was like, oh, no. So it would be like days before I even tried. I'd have stuff that I was pretty sure was funny. I'm like, nope, I don't want to go through that again.
You just reminded me of a call I made where there was the tennis open in the city, and I called just to complain about the traffic or something. And he was in no mood for it. So he said, I forget what he said, but he kind of wrote it off as, how many years do you have to live? When's it going to happen again? And he said, see you later. And then people started calling in, supporting me, saying you gave him a rough time. So I called back to the show 2 more times that day to say the exact same thing. And I redeemed myself. So I love that.
That was funny. Yeah. Jason Blair, who'll be on, I think a little bit later, he mentioned that Dennis was going through a whole thing about how he didn't like how Jim Rome, his callers would say, thanks for the vine. And he went through a whole thing. And then Jason was the next caller. And he said, thanks for the vine, which should have been really funny. But
you know what I used to love to do, and you were in on it with me, is sometimes he just wouldn't recognize my voice after years. And sometimes I would just go on with a different name, completely same voice, and say the same thing in the next hour until he finally caught on in hour 3.
Yeah. And do we want to talk about how some of your friends who would call in?
Like my fictitious friends?
Hey, I don't know. I thought that they were real friends until you just said that. Bert in Berlin, New Jersey.
Yes, Bert in Berlin, New Jersey. Like that didn't sound like him at all. It
sounds like George Takei.
Workshop him.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like George Takei. Oh my!
Well, you know why that started is because I started wanting to call in more and more, just spontaneous things based on whatever they were talking about in the show. And I thought, I can't call twice as Gene because he's going to get sick of me. So I would call as somebody else. Sometimes it was an obvious joke, but other times it was just for the sake of wanting to make a comment and going on as, Jim in Brooklyn or something.
Right. And was Leo in West Virginia or regular Virginia?
Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. That's what it was. And I think that was one where you hadn't told any of us. And then there was something about it where I'm like, I think that sounds like Gene to me. Or maybe he said the same thing you had said, and that's what it was.
I did it to Larry O'Connor, too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting though. Those aren't the only 2, right? There's got to be somebody else that
I went on as Peter Gabriel a couple times.
About that.
With like really obscure phrases and things.
Yeah, from like
early 70s Gabriel.
You didn't say it wasn't like I'll hit you with a sledgehammer. It was like early Genesis stuff.
Yeah,
right?
He would just say he would out of the blue just and then a butterfly can ring the bell twice and never see the sunset. That was it.
And talk a little bit about how great Lindsey is, because it'll make her uncomfortable, and how much you enjoyed hearing her on the show. She's not going to like it. So
I'm trying to think. What can we say to make her cry?
You want me to cry and be uncomfortable?
I was trying, but every time that I've tried, one of you assholes has showed up and really ruined my flow. No, and another one's going to be on in a minute. But
wait a minute. Whoa. What's this on the news? Dog of Miss Floyd in California struck by truck and not expected to live.
Funny.
Like, that's not funny.
That's not funny. And I can hear him sniffing under the door right here. Trying to
she knows he's okay. Well, Gene, stay with us, because joining us now is actually Jason Blair in a very festive, not just a festive decorations behind him, but the most festive sweater I've ever seen you in. Jason, we were talking before about some of your mishaps as a caller to the radio show. My favorite one, you said, "Thanks for the Vine." When he clearly did not want to be thanked for the Vine. Yeah, you like asked him like a legitimate, heartfelt question, because we used to do Dennis Ex Machina where he wanted like life advice. So you asked him life advice. Talk about how that went for you, Jason.
Yeah, that was. I remember at the time I worked for the federal government, and I could live anywhere in the continental United States, and so I was getting ready to get deployed for this thing, and ended up moving back to my hometown of Indianapolis. But I was like, Dennis has been a lot of places. He's, stand-up comic. Obviously, he's been to every little, place with a comedy store. So he knows where the nice places are. So I remember I called up and I just asked him, I said, I could live anywhere in the country. Where do you think would be a good place to check out? And he you're asking me where you should live. And I'm like, well, yeah, you've been a lot of places. What places strike your fancy? And he's just like, why would you ask? I don't know you. What do you like? I mean, I don't know. Boise's nice. Next caller. And that was it.
And Dominicus Saxon would agree. Boise is nice, so perhaps that's where you should have gone. Yeah, I know. And by the way, if you'd made that call the next day, you might have gotten like a very different answer. But look, the shared pain experience is a fun one. And speaking of pain, I have to apologize to Jason. I did him a great disservice. Because Dennis on one of the last shows solicited a chimp doctor call. And so I immediately asked Jason, because he had done a pretty strong one not too long ago. And I'm like, okay, because we had one that our friend Corby left that he did a voice and Dennis didn't like it. Corby did not say it was him. He was glad that he distanced himself from it. He messaged me after the fact. He's like, yeah, that was me. So I asked Jason for it. And then I completely forgot to play it in the show, which is very consistent. It's very on brand for me, but I do apologize that I did it to you. Look, if I screwed over Gene, I wouldn't feel bad, but I screwed over Jason, and I felt very bad about that.
Well, I went to work on it. The first time I did it, I realized it's like The Aristocrats. Chimp Doctor is all about the setup. So, you read it very straight. Use a lot of medical terminology. That really, the more scientific and less funny the question is, the funnier the payoff is. So correct. I really did a lot of research into dentistry and vectors of COVID transmission. And, really, I think asked a very ridiculous, solid question. And so I was very excited to hear what Dennis would say, because I got a good laugh out of him last time. And then, so I remember texting you after I knew you'd recorded the last episode, and I was like, how did Dennis like it? And you were like, oh.
And that was the moment where I was like, oh, fuck, I didn't play it. And I had like gone over with Lindsey all the things that we had, and she didn't know I had that, that we had to look for it because I had dealt with you on that. So, and that was, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Because I was like, we got this one and we got that one. And we, and then I was like, oh no. Yeah. But that's when I came up with the idea, which was the end credits scene from a Marvel movie. So Jason gets to be, again, to use the word penultimate, the second to last voice on the Dennis Miller option, followed by Chimp Doctor himself. Which Lindsey, how do you feel that worked? And also, it was important that we include that call from AJR, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had to get AJR in there. Though it was too bad we couldn't get him on the show. But the Chimp Doctor call was the only way to end that show, as far as I'm concerned.
You know, it's a shame that AJR didn't show up earlier in the run of the show, because his spots are brilliant.
They are.
And Lindsey, talk about how you actually tried to get him on the show.
Oh, yeah. No, I called the number that he used to leave his voicemail numerous times. The direct line to him was full. The mailbox was full, so I left in the general, but I did not get any response.
You know what I think it could be?
It's Stefan in New Jersey. Is that it?
Yeah. Or maybe Dennis is doing an Andy Kaufman, and it's Dennis.
It's all Dennis.
Oh.
I like that. Yeah, I know. I did like those calls, and we'll have to check the voicemails, and we'll see if he left one after the last show, because we've got a drawer full of voicemails, and I think I don't know. I hate the idea that they would go to waste. So I think Lindsey and I will do another special at some point. I'm going to make you do more work on this show you won't work on anymore.
More free work. I can't wait.
Did you guys ever go through? Did you guys ever go through the voicemails that were left between the radio show and the Westwood One return? I mean, because that line was still available for like 3 years, right?
I think there's like a 90-day limit though, so there wasn't like 3 years worth of voicemails to listen.
You should put out like a KTEL 45 set that you can sell on UHF.
I do love that idea. We could sell it during Uncle Floyd, actually. And
Lindsey, do you even know what UHF is?
No. Do you want to ask?
It's a Weird Al movie.
It's a great Weird Al movie. Yeah, when there were dials on TV, you had your top numbers, which were like 2 through 13. Those are the real channels, and then UHF were the crazy channels, which were like up to, I don't know, it was like up to like the 50s or something, 60
something.
Yeah, and the reception was always a lot worse.
Yeah, it's like
UHF channels, or that's a movie.
UHF is about
the name of the the name of the channels was UHF.
Okay.
Yeah, it was U52, I think. It was about programming a UHF channel, and the programming on UHF channels was fairly crazy, actually. But it's a little history lesson. And Lindsey, you talked about on the show, you would occasionally need a little bit of history lessons on the career of Mr. Dennis Miller, including, and you shared this story on the show, you watched Bordello of Blood with your boyfriend's parents.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah. Luckily, they were largely not in the room, but I was just really nervous they were going to walk in. I mean, they're so religious that the first couple times we stayed at his parents' house, he and I had to stay in different rooms. So, so Bordello of Blood was very risque, but it was a great movie.
I saw it in the theater, actually.
Yeah, same here.
Really? I'm so jealous.
I saw both Tales from the Crypt movies at the theater, but that one I like because I thought Dennis was funny, so I wanted to see him in a star in a movie.
He's great. I wish he had done more.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of what he did, like he's in the Michael Douglas movie Disclosure. He's in a movie with Rebecca De Mornay, but it's not Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I forget which one. No, I forget what that one's called. But he's in a few movies. He's also in The Net with Sandra Bullock, and that movie comes up a lot. And people have you have to give him props in there.
So a whole conversation about UHF in the chat.
Oh, I see. I haven't. I'm still behind in the chat. I'll have to find out what people's favorite UHF channels were. Now, Jason, so before I know that you're squeezing us in between holiday cheer, which we appreciate. So what, apart from your contributions, and you guys were both on our live call-in show that we did, right? Which
I was the first first live-in caller to Red Circle Sports with Dennis Miller one time. And I was also the first, I think, first or second call-in to the Dennis Miller option too.
The podcast one Dennis Miller option or the Westwood? Okay,
The podcast one, yeah.
Man, you're gonna have to get an entire wing in the Dennis Miller Option Hall of Fame. And don't worry, Gene, you're gonna get one too.
Hey, I sat in for an entire hour twice when he came to New York. Those were my most exciting moments of the whole run.
Oh, you did that for the radio show, right?
Radio show. Oh, for the not for the podcast.
Yeah. And
I think of them all as one. It's kind of hard.
I mean, it really wasn't that different, you know.
Well, the difference between the radio show and the podcast was that Carl from New Hampshire was like nowhere in the podcast, but over the radio show.
I thought about that, and I think he didn't understand how podcasts worked. Like, I don't think he knew how to get. Like, I had him on the Bladtcast a couple of times, but I don't think he knew how to listen to a podcast. And that must be why we didn't have it's funny because I was thinking of all the people to reach out to for the last episode, and I thought of Carl. I'm like, wait, Carl's never been on the show. So by the way, you mentioned Stefan in New Jersey before. I do have his home number, and we had him on the Bladtcast after the radio show ended.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was a really funny call too. Because he didn't know we called him live, and we have to do the thing where, just so you know, we're recording the call. You have to tell somebody right away. We told him that the radio show was ending, and he's like, "Do you think Dennis is okay? I could give him a couple bucks if he needs it." And just so deadpan. And I always loved Stefan, and there was this theory that Stefan and Racist Scott from Massachusetts were the same guy.
In fact, Racist Scott, randomly, I was listening to, I think, Rush Limbaugh one time. He calls into other shows.
He calls into a lot of shows, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll hear it, and you're like, wait, that's Racist Scott. And I think I've heard Doug from South Carolina on a few call-in shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm. We lost Doug from South Carolina.
No.
He loved to call about old movies, but
you don't mean he died.
Yeah, wait, what are you saying?
Okay, that's what I thought you meant.
I thought you meant he died, yeah.
In the last 5 years, we may have lost him. I don't know. But he didn't he didn't like the show anymore because he loved talking about old movies, and he had a lot of things about that. But and look, I think a lot of people who listened to the podcast and the radio show didn't have the same politics as Dennis. I think that there were things that they did agree with him, but then there are other things that they didn't, but you can still listen and still enjoy the show. But Doug was somebody that was too much. He was on the message boards for a little while, and then he left that, and then he just left the show entirely. So it was definitely over politics, and
I think there was a Doug from Palm Springs too, right? Or some.
I think his name was John, maybe.
He told a joke that was so funny, and was the only time I repeated it to somebody at work, and was the only time it got me in trouble at work. Do
you remember the joke?
Yes, it was right after the I think the Mitt Romney elections, and Washington State both legalized gay marriage and marijuana, like on the same ballot. So I might have been 2010, 2012. So he calls in and he goes, yeah, Dennis, this proves to me that Washington State is the most biblical state in the country because they approve gay marriage and marijuana. And Dennis was like, well, how does that make him biblical? And he says, because it says in Leviticus, if a man is to lie down with another, let him be stoned. And it was
that's a great joke.
It was a great joke. And I told it to a friend of mine. I said, I heard a joke. It's so wrong. Yeah. But I heard it from a guy who I think he was gay, actually.
Yeah, it's the guy I'm thinking of who lived in Palm Springs.
On the Dennis Miller show, and I told it to one person at work, and that was the one time in my 13 years at work that I got a call from my manager the next day that I was.
Wow.
Yeah. So
there's and we talk about how comedy has gotten uptight, but corporate America, and that's such a funny joke, But
that was a good joke. Very solid.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I know you do have to get back to some of your other holiday cheer out there, and this has been a tweet storm of a year for you.
Tweet storm.
at Jason P. Blair on Twitter, because I think you've posted at least 10 to 12 times, right?
10, yeah. Apparently there was some dust up in a tweet I was involved in, and then by the time I log in and see it, it's like a month later and half the tweets have been deleted, and so I have no idea what happened. So
we're going to talk about that in the Bladtcast Christmas special later this week. We lost a longtime listener who decided that he was going to give away his Bladtcast shirt that he had never opened the package.
He died too?
No.
Everybody's dying.
Everybody's dying.
We're losing our
guy. No. This guy's still alive. He just doesn't like us anymore. And yeah, people trying to like I don't think you've been listening if this episode really bothered you. But and it's like a couple times a year we'll do like one that's politics, and some people are like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to that. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably for the best then. And, I think he should have not listened to it. But our friend in the chat, Dominicus Saxon, was so upset that this guy didn't open his T-shirt. He's like, wait, he's had it and he didn't open it? It's like still in the envelope? He's like, no. He's like, I don't care that he doesn't listen anymore. And I don't know. Dominicus Saxon will have to let us know if his angling for that shirt has yielded any results.
I don't think so. And I feel bad for him because he wants one so bad and they're limited run. And I literally use mine when I'm like changing the oil or mowing the lawn. I treat it so terribly. It's my...
Dominicus Saxon has one, I think.
Oh, okay.
Another one, I think. I have a few more, but they're the smaller sizes now.
So I need one.
What's that, Lindsay? You're breaking up. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You want a Manscaped shirt?
I actually do.
Actually, yes, I do. Yeah.
It's a good memory. It's a good memory with Dennis.
Yeah, it's a great memory. That's why I'm wearing it. All right. Well, Jason, we'll let you go. You'll get roped back into the Bladtcast, and I'm glad that I was able to make amends getting your call on. But something that I'll get to in a little bit before this show ends is I just want you to know it wasn't alone. I also forgot that I wanted to write a last Kwok Brothers for the last podcast, and I just forgot to write it. So, my own chance to shine, I also forgot about. So, I
just wanted to hear Lindsay do the thank you, Kwok Brothers. Because
you know what? When you're done with all your meetings, you might want to tune back into this because you might get to hear that.
Awesome. All right.
Well, thank you, Jason Blair, at Jason P. Blair.
See you, Jason.
And the last time that Gene, Jason, and I were together, we talked about Mr. Rogers for like 2 hours. But anyway, he had to squeeze us in between calls, but I thought it would have been very rude to send Gene packing. But we talked a lot about some of the calls and things like that. And I don't know. I think you didn't get a chance to really talk about how great Lindsay is. So I'm just going to be quiet.
Again?
Let's see. Well, we're friends on Instagram.
Yeah.
So she's a very good dog walker.
Oh, thank you. I do a lot of dog
and a
walking.
Horse rider. She loves horses.
I do, right? Yeah, that's true.
And her laugh, I don't even need to mention that because that precedes her,
That's who I am now. I'm just a laugh.
Just a laugh.
And
I'm very happy to hear she's in her.
Yeah, are you at all surprised to find that she's able to find love despite her mangled fingers?
Let's see. What kind of mangled fingers?
You want to see my mangled finger?
Yeah, let's check them out.
How do I do this? It's this little pinky that's so much shorter. Can you see how much shorter it is?
Is that a birth thing?
No, I ripped it off. It got caught.
Wait, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it got caught under a rope over a fence with a horse pulling on it, so it popped right off.
Jeez, but there's a nail there.
I know I wasn't supposed to grow a nail back, but I did somehow because
that's weird. Did you come out of a pod or something? Because you're not supposed to have nails grow back.
I'm baby Yoda.
That's weird. Well, I can top that a little bit. I just had some mild skin cancer taken off yesterday, but nothing life-threatening. But it's just going to be like 2 weeks of stitches.
Oh my gosh!
Oh no!
Everything's perfectly fine though. It was all very early and innocent. But I wouldn't have said anything, but I had to compete with your finger.
No,
I like it.
My hands are fine, by the way, but that's all right. Gene, your contributions on air were discussed, but some of your graphic representations, not just putting Dennis and I into children's books, which is much appreciated, but I have it. I should have brought it down. I wasn't thinking. You did a artist rendering of the open for the old radio show, but then you also did some Chimp Doctor art for me.
Yeah.
I did one of you, I think, at the end of the radio show. Didn't I do one of you as a baseball card?
Yeah, that's right. You did do that.
Yeah, you're like holding the bat. Oh, he forgets about it. Okay. Yeah.
I did. Well, look, I remember the Chip Doctor one. It's in a frame.
I did a lot of drawings over the course of the years. The hypochondriacal sampler, and
you did a great Felix the cat and Lucy from Peanuts. Where Lucy is, this is another thing that I should have brought. I should have had a whole stack of Gene's artwork to show, but I don't.
What was the fake movie, Man something?
Mansquito.
I did a Mansquito.
Yeah, Mansquito. Yeah.
A lot.
Still in turnaround at some. We're hoping once movie theaters open, we'll be able to get Mansquito back out there. Let's hope. In any case, so we hope to see more of that. And Gene, you have a great show that you do with your brother, the Beretta Brothers. Tell people
that's kind of what this is. This is the set for that.
Yeah, tell people where they can find the Beretta Brothers and where they can find your award-winning series of children's books.
Well, children's books, you can just go to geneberetta.com, Beretta, Barretta. And my brother works for the Muppets. He's one of the performers and producers and writers and all that. And so we have a kind of a Muppet-centered vodcast. It's video. And you can just go to theberettabrothers.com to see all the episodes. We've had all the major Muppet people, but also some big celebrities like Ricky Gervais and Tom Bergeron and Danny Trejo and Bobby Moynihan. Oh, so it's been really fun. It's been less than a year. I think we're doing episode 37 this Sunday. So it's been fun.
You're in Bladtcast 413. So if we're comparing measurements,
I have a lot to go.
A little ways to go. Gene, we appreciate you all your contributions over the years, but we also appreciate you giving us some time today. Sure. And I'm a little disappointed you didn't make Lindsay cry, but there's still some time. I'm going to see what I can.
Close your eyes a second, Lindsay. We only have so much time on this planet, and we have to make sure that we live every moment in love. And we're going to lose people that we love, our parents, our grandparents. Usually the relationships we feel so a part of end very quickly and unexpectedly, and it all goes like a feather in the wind.
That's beautiful.
We are all dust in the wind, so thank you for that, Gene. I appreciate that.
I'm crying inside.
Gene Beretta, Gene from Philly, we appreciate all your contributions, and look, the Bladtcast isn't going anywhere, so I'm going to rope you into something. And if there was ever anything Muppet related that I was an expert on, I'll strong arm my way into that. But I don't have any expertise. Just family.
Well, you should get on the chat this Sunday because it's our Christmas show, and I know you like to talk about Emmett Otter.
Oh, I can talk about Emmett Otter for weeks. So,
2 p.m. Sunday Pacific time.
Okay.
So
all right.
Jump in.
Well, I will look for that. All right. Well, thank you, Gene, and we'll talk to you soon. And of course, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and as all of our Star Wars friends would say, Happy Life Day.
And here comes we're in the middle of a nor'easter, by the way.
Oh, is that what that noise is?
Do you hear something? No, but it's just getting really heavy out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Gene.
Bye.
Yeah. There's like an alarm of some kind going on there, or is it here?
I think it's there.
Yeah, I think my son set an alarm for Alexa. So yeah, he likes to do that. Yeah, you know what? It's noon. Yeah, you know what? That was.
That was you.
Do you hear Alexa right now? Yeah.
No, what is she saying?
Yeah, that's all right. She was saying, I don't know what she was saying, but yeah. So that alarm was at noon.
She's saying, Christian, get up, you fool.
Lindsay, what can I do to make you cry? I just don't think I just haven't done a good
You
job.
can give me $1 million. I'll cry.
Give you $1 million? What if I gave you $10? Would that make you cry? No.
A couple hundred might make me cry.
Oh, that would be worth it. All right. So I'm going to do a Kickstarter, see if I can get $100. And
I said a couple hundred, not 100.
I think 100 could make you cry. Come on. If I said spend it on whatever you want, I think that you would appreciate that.
I thought that 1,000 was for whatever I wanted.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we talked a little bit about what the show meant to you. You can talk about what I mean to you, though. That's all right. Let's listen.
Oh, you're just a pain in my ass. I was actually going to ask you what the show meant to you. You were there so much longer.
Yeah, I mean, look, getting to do the podcast was, look, it was a huge disappointment when the radio show ended very abruptly in 2015. I was definitely not ready for that. And, this is now the third time that I've been working with Dennis when something ended. The CNBC show ended fairly abruptly. And so did the radio show. This one, we definitely knew that it was coming. We had a way to prepare for a last show. It was the only last show that I was ever able to actually produce for Dennis. So getting to do the podcast, it really just felt like, it's like all the best parts of the radio show, but not having to take commercial breaks every 8 minutes. And it's not like having to book 15 guests a week. It's
right.
One or two, and like I was saying before, when the guys were with us, it felt like a continuation of the radio show, because it was even a lot of the same guests. I was like, I only have so many phone numbers that I can call. It's like politics. Well, I guess I could call Victor Davis Hanson. I have him in my cell phone, so I guess that'll work. I was like, see if we can get Larry O'Connor. But yeah, so getting that opportunity to just do more of it, and just kind of getting to interact with people, with some of the guests that we would have on, was a lot of fun. And it was a tremendous opportunity, which I always appreciate with Dennis. Always being so kind with the accolades and always giving credit. When he thought something was funny, I used to write jokes for him on the radio show. And I would usually send him just like a page of jokes. And every once in a while, there'd be one. He's like, this is too funny. I can't say this because I would feel bad not letting you get credit for it. So then he would have me like basically tell a joke on the air, which, I didn't do as well as he did, not even close. But so I always appreciated that. And just getting to talk to him more was really a lot of fun, So, just the continuation of it was crazy. It was something that, there had been a talk of a podcast back when the radio show ended, and then it didn't happen. So I just kind of felt like, okay, I guess this is just something that's not going to happen. But I alluded to it earlier when he was starting to do what was first a sports podcast for Podcast One. I was definitely disappointed. I'm like, it's the sort of thing that I feel like I would be really good at. But again, I don't work there. And that's how Will ended up working on it, because he had worked with Dennis before. But then, like I said, Dennis asked me to sit in, and that meant a lot. And, he didn't have to pay me. I would have kept doing it as long as I could have, So the fact that he did was great.
Right.
So, I don't know, I had fun. And look, I think it really did add to the dynamic to have you there. It was a little bit weirder once we had to start doing the show remotely. Like when you and I would be in the studio, sort of, like we could make eye contact and like things might make us laugh. I think that would help a lot, but I think it was good. It was nice to freshen it up a little bit, because there's only so much you can get out of having me to talk to all the time. So you made us.
It was an honor. It was an honor. I really appreciated it. And it meant a lot that Dennis would give me an opportunity and be supportive in the way that he was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that it says a lot about him. And I'm so far behind in the comments, but I wanted to get this one in here. Only Norm Macdonald could have joined Dennis on his last show. It was not from a lack of trying. I went to some crazy lengths to try and get Norm on the show, and was happy to have Dana Carvey. But the reason I booked Carvey was because I was convinced that I wasn't going to get Norm. I would have loved to have had them both on. I would have loved to have them both on together. So it has been a very long time since I've been able to book a segment with Norm Macdonald. And we were talking about Rob Lorch before. Sam Whitfield, who's going to join us in a little bit, actually, Sam. He'll have an announcement about Rob Lorch soon on his channel. So, yeah, I know he's going to have, I think he might have an appearance from Mr. Lorch, which it has been far too long since we've had him on the Bladtcast. I usually just have him on to talk about comics and stuff. But so now all of a sudden I'm all caught up. So I was going to scroll through a lot of minutes worth of comments, but Demetrius Saxon makes a great point. Orson Bean was one of the best guests ever, and I definitely agree. Like, it was always fun. We had him in studio last June, so I guess 2 Junes ago we had him on. I think that was one of the best guests. That was so fun. That was a very sad way to start. It ended up being a terrible year, 2020, when we heard that Orson had passed. We'll do a couple more things with our pal Lindsey. But who stood out for you as some of your favorite guests from the show?
Oh gosh, I mean, Dana Carvey was always a winner. I loved Bob Saget. I loved Mike Rowe. Thought that was phenomenal. Adam Carolla was always a good one. Gene Simmons, of course.
Real Gene Simmons or fake Gene Simmons?
Well, they each have a spot on the list, I'd say.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and I mean, it was fun to get, to like the guests that we had in studio. Like, remember we had Julia Sweeney from SNL. She was in.
Oh yeah, she was great.
It was so fun that I think that that was somebody that I don't know. I think he had talked to on the radio show once or twice when she was promoting something, but it was just like, oh my God, what a great show that was. That was, and that was because we were all in person. And yeah, I mean, it was. It definitely. We definitely.
Great. I like the female poker player. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, Jennifer Tilly, the actress.
Yes.
Poker. I forgot we did that. Yeah, that was a good one.
That was another one.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have a couple of other guests join me, and we're gonna let Lindsey go soon. But there's something that I told you were gonna have to help me with. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So let's see. This is as professional as it can get under these circumstances. Greetings, honorable customer. Is Kwok Brothers going out of business sale? We lost our Reese after no more outdoor dining. So try our to-go only special going out of business menu. Chinchilla chow mein, $5.50. General style pangolin surprise, $3.99. Mugu Guy Bat, $6. None for you, Gavin Newsom. You broke the Kwok.
Thank you, Kwok Brothers.
Wait, now I need to edit it together. So now do it when you're not laughing at how funny I am.
Oh, thank you, Kwok Brothers.
And then I'll put it together, and then that can be at the end. Although the audio version of this is already going to have like an extra half hour. Remember, we did the test last week.
Oh,
yeah, remember. I mean, come on.
I try to forget my time with you, but
yeah. Well, Lindsey, this is not the last time you're going to be on the Bladtcast. In fact, I might ask you for a drive-by very soon during our virtual Christmas party, but we'll see if we can find the time.
Okay, I'm there. You sending me drinks beforehand?
Yeah. Hang on. You're in a distillery. I don't think you need me to send you any drinks.
That's true. I can see 6 bottles of liquor on the table in front of me.
Yeah, and I believe 2 of them are supposed to be earmarked.
Yes. I've got 2 bottles of barrel-aged, or I'm sorry, maybe strength the rum for you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So in any case, so where can people keep tabs on you? I know if people are watching, they can see where to find you, but for our audio listeners, let them know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm on all of the social media, and it's almost always the same handle, and that's my full name. So that's Lindsey, LINDSEY KAYFLOYD. That's Floyd, like Pink Floyd. And then if you're interested, keep an eye out because I'm trying to work on launching my own kind of media group and putting together the social media for that and working on some websites. So, yeah.
Well, I want you to know that Corby says he's going on a hunger strike until Lindsay's back on.
No, Kirby, no. Okay, I'll come back anytime, every time. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Lindsay, we certainly appreciate that, and thank you for I don't know, humoring whatever this is. Doing the Bladtcast so many times, which usually just stretched out your work day, but all those drives up to Santa Barbara and going to La Superica Taqueria, that is really. That's really going to be, sure, I'll miss you. I'll miss Dennis. But La Superica Taqueria, I think that is really.
I mean, it's not going anywhere. We can go back. We can do a field trip. We can do a Bladtcast field trip, and we'll record there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something that might work, but that's or we just get tacos locally. I guess as good as they are, that's a lot. That's a lot of driving to go to do 180-mile round trip.
We'll have to do one down here from the distillery.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Oh yeah. Hey, do you want to give a plug to the distillery?
Oh yeah, I'm at Old Harbor Distilling in San Diego. It's locally based, obviously, and they've got rum, vodka, and coffee liqueur. They're working on some whiskey, so it's great. Check it out. They're also about to be opening a speakeasy, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. See, this is so that's look at all this promotion. Should we promote anything on the Westwood One podcast network? Is there anything that we should let people know? Should they listen to Jason Stapleton?
Jason Stapleton's great. He's not comedy. He's more business. He's libertarian. A lot of good life coaching, business coaching advice there, I'd say. But the Dennis Miller option is going to leave a big hole there, and I'm certain I'll be assigned another project. It will never be like this one was. Yeah,
people like to do rewatches of TV shows, so you could do a re-binge of the podcast.
I'm just going to do a full podcast about the podcast.
I mean, that's actually what the Bladtcast was when it started. It was supposed to be a podcast about doing the Dennis Miller show, and then after one episode, I was like, I don't know, let's just talk about comic books and guy stuff. It was very dude centric, so that's why we get real men like Dominicus Saxon. Well, Lindsay, this is not goodbye because you'll be back on this show before you know it.
I will be. I can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody in the chat, say goodbye to Lindsay. And it didn't make me cry. We didn't even get close to making you cry. There were so many tear emojis on Twitter, but I guess just you only have virtual tears. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you to Lindsey Floyd at Lindsey K. Floyd. Always a favorite of the Bladtcast. We have some comments to get to here, and some friends that I expected to be joining us, but we don't have at the moment. So we've got Patrick saying thank you to both Lindsay and I. And this is a great point. Farad said just have Lindsay listen to the finale intro again. And I guess a very easy thing to do is to just tell, we've got Dominicus Saxon who says, bye, Lindsay, from a real man, which is important. And there's a technical issue with somebody who's supposed to join us, which I hope we're able to hammer out in the near future. What I like this though from the great Tim in San Diego says one of the best parts of the radio show is the occasional focus on music. Love his obscure, uniquely Miller-esque snapshot of 70s rock and roll. I definitely agree with that. We had some really fun chats. Having on Rob Halford from Judas Priest recently and Brian Wheat from Tesla. Yeah, we had some great conversations. And I think that Dennis really connected with Joe Elliott from Def Leppard because they both grew up with a lot of the same sort of 70s rock influences. So they had a lot to do there. We've got two friends trying to join us right now. Corby seems to have some tech issues, but let's hope he gets that sorted out. But joining us right now is Savage Sam Whitfield, really representing the DMZ hat. Sam, I wanted to give you a few minutes. I know that you had a voicemail in the last show, and then also a voicemail in the last show. Our friend Corby. Let's say hi to Corby. Look at Corby outside. Look at Corby. Beautiful blue sky there, Corby. Uh-oh, and then he froze. So, well, that was a little drive-by from Corby. We'll work on Corby in a minute. So I wanted to give you a minute to talk about Dennis, and I know you did this on the voicemail that we had, but talk about the podcast in particular and just Dennis in general.
Well, just the podcast was great because we lost Christian there, but the podcast
I'll be back. It's okay. I'm letting you shine for a moment.
Oh, okay. The podcast, folks, was great because I had discovered Dennis because of Andrew Breitbart and subsequently the radio show. So I had never heard Dennis swear until I went back and watched a bunch of the HBO stuff. And so to hear Dennis uncensored was pretty great.
And he swore a lot in his specials and on the HBO show.
Oh yeah, definitely. And one of my favorite memories too, Jason was getting roasted by Dennis a few times and kind of getting insulted. I remember around the time the radio show was coming to an end, or I think maybe this was on one of the Bladtcasts that Dennis had appeared on. My friends for years at that point were saying that I should do stand-up, like, you're the funniest one in our group and you should do stand-up. So I decided it would be a good idea to ask Dennis for stand-up advice. And I remember him saying, "What, are you fucking kidding me? This kid is gonna ask me for advice so he can kill the older wildebeest? Stick to podcasting, babe, and don't fucking come into my territory." And it was an insult. I also had to laugh, like,
oh yeah,
it's like I got insulted by my favorite comic. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dennis always tells a story of he had Don Rickles on his HBO show, and the first thing he asked him was, "Hey Don, how's it going?" He's like, "How's it going? Well, I'm on this piece of shit, aren't I?" So there's definitely something to be said for that. I've certainly been ridiculed by Dennis and Norm Macdonald on a few occasions, and it's like a badge of courage. Not everybody has it. By the way, I wanted to show off collectibles. You have the old DMZ hat, Sam. I have one of the very rare. Well, they weren't so rare because we gave them to everybody in the audience, but this is from the CNBC TV show. So audience members would get these shirts. So these shirts are from 2004, 2005. And I still have them because I might have gone home with a box of them after the show ended. But
yeah, I think I remember Michael Howsam got like a box of the old DMZ listening fezzes as well.
I have a few things down in the garage. All right, let's see if we can talk to Corby now. Corby, how are you, sir?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Oh man.
And Sam Whitfield. This is the combination here. Anybody who tuned in and was hoping to get any kind of sex appeal by there being a beautiful woman on the show, this is what they really should have tuned in for. For the three most handsome men in podcasting, myself, Sam Whitfield, and Corby. Corby, how are you? I needed to check in on you because I know how much the podcast meant to you. I think you had a little bit of a separation anxiety after the radio show, but talk a little bit about what all this means to you, sir.
My wife is keeping me under close, shall we say, supervision, keeping me away from any ropes or
a 48-hour observation, I believe they call that.
Yeah, or bottles of pill or anything like that. It's been rough. It's been a rough couple days. It's been a rough couple weeks knowing that it was coming to an end. You know, I know you're worrying about how you're going to feed your family, but that's trivial. I'm worrying about what podcasts I'm going to call into.
Well, you're looking at two of them right here. You can call into the Bladtcast. Hey, I can still check voicemails at 866-509-7268. So for old time's sake, you could leave a couple of those. I already mentioned earlier in the show, I don't know if you saw it, but I feel like I'm going to rope Lindsey into a show next year where we'll go through some of these voicemails. We have a couple of like really good ones and some others, but Sam, do you take live calls on the Whitfield? Is it the Whitfield Report or the Whitfield Wire? I always call it the wrong thing.
It's the Whitfield Report. I have like a newsletter that's like a Drudge Report thing that's called the Whitfield Wire too, that like auto aggregates from stuff. But yeah, the Whitfield Report is my show, and we do have a way to call in. It's via an app called Discord.
All right, so Corby, that's two shows right there.
Hey, I will not disappoint.
I'll message your wife and let her know that it's probably going to be okay.
And if you like obscure 90s references and 80s references, that's where I kind of come in. I left at the obscure reference bit from Dennis and updated it by a decade or so. But
those are two decades I'm a little more familiar with. So
yeah.
Well, Corby, talk about the highs and lows of having a voicemail played that Dennis loves. And then the other side of that.
Oh, my goodness. Well, getting my voicemails played, when you guys let me on the radio show the first time, you opened up a can of worms, because if you give me attention, I'm going to keep coming after it. So when I made Dennis laugh or made you laugh or, made anybody laugh, that's a really big high for me. I'm not a professional comedian. I tell a lot of dad jokes. But if someone thinks I'm funny, that's a big deal. So I just kept calling in. Then the first time Dennis called me a creep, it hurt a little bit. My last attempt at a chimp doctor, that one hurt. No one knew it was me until about 25 minutes ago. Thank you, Christian.
I was happy to give away your secret identity and out you that because it was like you did it with an accent or something. It's like, yeah, the accent didn't work.
Yeah. Well, Jason's was just infinitely better than mine. Mine was just totally impromptu. Had a thought in my head, dialed the number, and went for it. I was actually surprised when you played it, but I was glad. Until I heard how it turned out.
Yeah. A lot of the comments from earlier went away, but this one made me laugh from Roz JD. We're still waiting for Judge Janine Pirro. Yeah, she did eventually call in, but Dennis was like, I'm already done. Like, I don't want to just talk to her about her book for 2 minutes. So that was sort of a recent one. And Farad Muhammad with the rib kick. The Bladtcast isn't going anywhere. Now Lindsey's crying. Not entirely untrue, in all honesty. So, Corby, this is a question from you from earlier. Lindsey, did you cry when you mutilated your finger? That's not nice, but it's a good question.
I wanted to know.
And look, trying to get a Kickstarter to make her cry. Matt R said that he's in for a hundo. Yeah, I think if we get a couple hundred together, we should just present her. I'll Venmo it to her live, and then I'm just like, oh, look down at your phone, and then Bladtcast Nation will have given her 400 or 500 pennies. I was going to say dollars, but let's be honest.
I've still got a few bucks that I was going to buy my kids some more Christmas presents with, but sure, I'm in.
I mean, let's give the money to somebody who produces a podcast that's ended instead of the kids. Yeah, it's a dicey time of year for all of that for sure.
I mean,
go ahead, Rob. Sorry, I almost called you Rob, but that's not an insult. That's I claim.
That's a comment. I was gonna say that Lindsey just started watching Star Wars recently, and I was gonna ridicule her about that, and so I mean I could have made her cry by making her feel bad about
Oh,
just now watching Star Wars, but
yeah. Well, if I had seen this comment from David earlier, remember how Dennis used to love to quote Blade Runner? These moments are like tears in the rain. So yeah, if we could have gotten to mention that, we could have. Humble Pater says you were winging the last 2 hours of the radio show. LOL. He's referencing something that I think other people have mentioned. I think that the last radio show that aired, I think I had ended up like recording an hour or something because Dennis needed to go and we didn't know it was the last show. So I think I didn't remember that. Painter, if you're still there, tell me if that's what you're referencing. I think I did the last hour. I think I did do the last hour of the radio show. And so then when I got a call, I was like, oh boy, what are they mad about now? Because I guest hosted a bunch of times. Like a true narcissist, the only show files that I have from the old radio show are the ones that I guest hosted, because obviously what am I ever going to listen to again other than me? But yeah, I think that Painter is right. His real name's Mike. I hate to give away his secrets. I think Mike's right. I think I did the last hour of the radio show. And my friend Chimp Doctor, though, is the last voice that anyone hears on the Dennis Miller option. What do you think, Corby? Do you think you want to have another crack at Chimp Doctor? If you want to leave another voicemail.
Well, I had actually sent in another Chimp Doctor voicemail. Probably, I think it was in the end of September. Which I thought was definitely better than my last attempt. But it never got played. I didn't know if it got through. So after hearing Jason's, I can't compete with that. I can't. Yeah. I'm a lowly insurance adjuster. I think what's Jason? Is he a lawyer or something? I can't compete with that.
He's essentially a patent attorney. I think Jason. Yeah, but
I'm out. He wins.
Yeah, we know what I meant to ask him. His wife is, or at least was, a dental hygienist. So I feel like he had those materials around. So I think he was able to cheat.
That is a little bit cheating. Yeah.
Do easy research there. And Farad earlier saying something I think we all agree with. It is too bad that Norm Macdonald didn't make it for any of the last episodes. He's notoriously tough to track down, I've heard. You have no idea.
I actually wanted to kind of interject about that because I actually tried to get Norm Macdonald to come to my college a few years ago. I was in a media studies class and we were doing a thing on comedy, and we actually almost got Norm to come to the school, but then we looked at what his fee was, and it was like, well, for this late in the semester, we can't spend that kind of money to get Norm.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I would have, if it were up to me, I would have personally said, let's fucking do it, but there was just no
really up to you.
There was just no way.
Well, he's only gotten harder to track down. He had a whole Twitter dissertation that he deleted about how weirded out he got about COVID, and he was like hiding out in rural British Columbia, and then when it gets cold, he's going to go to North Carolina. But then, like, I saw those tweets the night that he posted them, and then they were gone, and I was like, oh yeah, we're definitely not going to get him. But that didn't stop me from trying. I reached out to people who I think can get his ear, and did not succeed. Something that I was talking about earlier, Painter mentions the remote interviews screwed the radio show. The few times we were all together were the best shows. I think that for the podcast, like we were talking about being in studio, like a long form in studio interview is like we were talking about Julia Sweeney, which I think she's funny. I liked her, but they had a really great conversation. I say we, Dennis and her, and I think those were the best episodes. I think that's what I'll think of most fondly, the ones where Lindsey brought the mobile kit and we were set up, in a table in the back room behind the studio where Dennis was doing the TV show. But you guys, as fans of the show, I'll ask you first, Corby, who stood out to you as whether they're your favorite guests or look, we know your favorite caller to the show is you, but apart from that, what's your second favorite thing about the old Dennis Miller option?
You did have me call in as a live guest a couple times, so I would say that I'm the favorite guest too. But I'd say in second place, Definitely love the SNL guys. Carvey, I knew you were trying to get Norm Macdonald. You alluded to that, and I was hoping you could. But Carvey was great. Lovitz. I just love the chemistry that you and Dennis, and then Dennis and all the guests, or most of the guests, had. It wasn't all great, but I just love sitting in on those conversations because I felt like I'm sitting around with some people that I really like to listen to, and they're just talking, and that's what made the show so good for me. And then being able to have a part in that, and send out my stupid voicemails and get them through you and Lindsay, that was just icing on the cake. But I just love the chemistry. It didn't really matter who the guest was, as long as they were vibing with Dennis, because Dennis, he didn't always want to be serious, or he definitely didn't want to talk about politics in the last while. I pretty much, I guess, the whole podcast, I don't know, but as long as they were on that same wavelength and they would just roll with Dennis, and you'd throw in your great little jokes here and there, Lindsay would laugh. I just loved everything about it. It was just like hanging out with some really cool people.
Well, there's a couple of things that you're reminding me of. I think these were both from the old radio show, but it would be guests that you weren't kind of expecting. They were probably two of the flirtiest guests that we ever had on, which were Rosario Dawson and Mindy Kaling. And you could hear, like, Dennis was like, "Oh, okay," like, there's a little bit of extra spring in his step because very funny, of course, that Rosario Dawson is I think Cory Booker's girlfriend now.
Yep.
So and Mindy Kaling is not, but so I thought it those were always kind of my favorite. But I don't know if either of you guys heard this. My favorite thing from the radio show, in that sense, this reminded me of, speaking of Norm Macdonald, when Norm Macdonald guest hosted and we had Ann Coulter on. Did either of you guys hear that?
Oh yeah, I went back and watched that the other day. Actually,
I don't think I heard that one.
Well, let Corby know where to find that.
I would love to know where to find that.
Yeah, because that's one of my favorite things, literally ever.
I'm gonna have to message that to you, Corby. It's hilarious to watch, just because like two polar opposite worlds collide.
That sounds awesome. One guest that comes to mind that I always loved, and I was glad you had him on a while back, was Mike Rowe. When you got Dennis's and Mike's vocabularies together, and the last one when they were going off about artificially inseminating bovine and all that, loved having Mike Rowe on there. He's probably my favorite guest.
He was always great, and he flew himself to LA once to do the radio show. Like he wasn't coming for any other reason. He was and I think Dennis was in studio. This was like almost 10 years ago. So Mike Rowe is great. That's a good one. Sam, I know we talked a little bit about it, but is there anybody that you feel like hasn't gotten enough credit? A lot of people in the chat are talking about how great it would be when the late great Orson Bean was on. But are there people that stand out for you that haven't come up in the course of this conversation?
Oh, I mean, well, we talked about it on my show when you came on earlier in the year, but when Andrew Breitbart used to call in, he was, aside from being very politically sharp, he was funny as well. I remember the first time I had ever heard the radio show, Dennis introduces him as the contemporary Ben Franklin, and Andrew goes, "Did Ben Franklin like fart jokes with his kids, or something like that?" And I could hear your laughter over the broadcast. He was just witty and sharp like that. And then as far as the podcast goes, one of my dream pairings was very recently. It was Bob Saget and Dennis together, because I grew up watching Saget too on he was part of How I Met Your Mother, kind of the voiceover. So
that's
that
so
was
funny. Because I was, of course, thinking that maybe you were going to say Full House or America's Funniest Home Videos. But yeah, he did great voiceover on How I Met Your Mother. And yeah, I think he was a great part of that show. Yeah, and that was one of those ones for scheduling. I wish that Dennis had a little bit more time because they were really clicking. It was going great. And then Dennis he had somewhere to be. So then the show ended, you know, and all right, great talking to you, Bob, I got to go. And I was like, oh man, just like 10 more minutes would have been amazing. And you know, look, it happens many times. It's just the way it worked out. But yeah, I thought that was a really great conversation he had with Saget, you know?
And I know that Dennis and Carvey are close, and I know that he and Norm are close. I'm not sure how close of friends he and Bob are, but I generally got the sense that Bob was kind of shocked that Dennis was quitting. He actually says at some point in the podcast, I think, well, Dennis, you're born for this broadcasting,
you
know, and podcasting thing. I'm kind of shocked that you're quitting, and to shock someone like Bob Saget like that, it's kind of like, wow.
No, look, it's a good point, and I think that look, there's the timing is everything, as they say, and you know, it was brought up in the chat that he did just sell his house. It's very public. This is not a secret thing. So you have an influx of money. All of a sudden, you know, maybe you don't have to hustle so hard. And I tried to stress on the podcast, he still has his TV show, Dennis Miller Plus One, which is an interview show. And that's what I had kind of hoped that the podcast could have been. Like, look, let's just have interviews. I don't care if we ever talk about politics. And then we didn't really from like after October. And, you know, I mean, but, you know, even then he still did talk about it a little bit. Like, you know, if you hear the last month of episodes, there's a couple of times where he can't resist and he feels the need to chime in on it, but he didn't want to get into it, you know? And, you know, I think it's I don't know, to me, there's nothing disappointing in somebody that's like, yeah, I don't see any value in it, because there's still so much more we could have talked about. And I think he will on his TV show. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that, you know, it just meant certain guests that weren't on. But of course we had both Kurt Schlichter and Larry O'Connor in our last episode, which I think was they both had great voicemails. Not as good as yours, Corby. I know. Get it.
What's
you don't have to stroke my ego. I stroke my own ego.
What were you going to say, Sam?
What's funny is I've read Kurt Schlichter's work for years over on Town Hall, and
yeah, he's great.
He actually followed me on Twitter anyway, and he's like, oh, hey, you're from the Dennis Miller Zone website, right? And I'm like yes. So it's funny because I'm known as part of the DM.
Yeah, part of the DMZ. I mean, you've got the hat. So, well, that's very cool. And by the way, this was what we were talking about earlier. Jason just confirms that I did the last part of the radio show, and I didn't remember that. So when I got the call from the boss, I probably thought that they were annoyed about that. I was like, you did your last show today. I'm like, huh? What? Am I getting fired? Oh, no, the show's over. And that was, I think that was something that we didn't talk about for a while, that's the way it ended. But there was a month of reruns, which you guys probably do remember. In any case,
holding out for a new show.
Yeah, a new show from Dennis. Oh yeah, just one more. Yeah, it's weird. It's a
radio show.
It's a radio thing where they don't like to let you do a last show, because I think that this works for radio shows where they play music, where you tune in on Friday, you listen, great, you go to work, whatever. And then you get back in your car on Monday, you got the same station on and you listen. And if there's different people, they think you're going to just keep listening. And if it's a music, you know, show where they give you the weather and, you know, the traffic report, it's probably going to be somewhat effective. But if it's a talk radio show, you're like, oh, this isn't the guy I like. You know, and I think that that happens sometimes with guest hosts. I'm sure that people were like, oh, it's just Christian. I don't want to hear that. I get it. Because there's shows that I've listened to where I'm like, oh, I don't like this guest host, so I will not be listening to this show today, you know? So I get that. So I think that was just a radio thing, that they just wanted to slide a new show in there. And it did not last very long, but
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christian, I will say that and you probably don't remember this, but on at least one of the episodes of the radio show where you hosted and Dennis wasn't there, I still called in. I called you out for not returning my vinyl copies of Taylor Swift's 22 album.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It's funny because I don't remember that. Sorry, but I did appreciate when the regulars would still call. Like I would sometimes when I guest hosted, I didn't know I was doing it till that morning. The first time I did it, it was Dennis was sick. Larry O'Connor couldn't do it, and I'm like, oh, let me just do it. But then I stacked like some of our regulars, like Deborah Saunders, and I think I even had Larry on. And so then I would do that a lot of times. And then the fact that the callers would still be there, like I would try and I would nudge like Gene in Philly and other people who I had, emails for. I'm like, oh, I could really use a call today because I'm going to be hosting. But when the regular callers would unsolicited still call, and I always appreciated that. Before we wind down, just a couple of other favorites. William Metz points out that the rib guy did not have chemistry. We did not focus it on ribs during this entire conversation. Jason points out not every guest can be like Steve Emerson. That's come up on the podcast a couple of times where he just didn't stop saying like, no, you were really terrible in movies. No, I don't think you understand what a bad actor you are, which was crazy. Jeffrey, with a great Tom Servo emoji, says that Larry O'Connor was the favorite guest. All right, I think you probably should have listened to more shows. Let's be honest. Judy Collins was definitely epic, as was the Swami, the spiritual guru who just managed, of course, to plug everything. Dominica Saxon appreciated the Ann Coulter bit. You know what? I would have loved to have done more of these Robert Wagner and George Hamilton hours. We did a couple of them in the radio show. Robert Wagner doesn't do interviews anymore, and you can Google him to figure out why he doesn't want to talk to people. But George Hamilton still does. I would have loved to have done that, actually. I don't know how many of those you guys heard, but just to listen to some of those stories, George Hamilton had some of the starting out in Hollywood stories he had were pretty great,
Mm-hmm.
But so those. I mean, it's easy to just ramble off a lot of this stuff. And again, when somebody gives me a credit, they're going to get on the screen. Besides me, Andrew and Larry O were the best guest hosts. Andrew Breitbart had never guest hosted a radio show before he guest hosted the Dennis Miller Show. I had to talk him into it. The idea of spending 3 hours like talking, even though it's really like an hour and 35 minutes, as anybody who downloaded the show knew, like he actually had Larry there to help calm him down and center him because he was really anxious about it. But I think he did a tremendous job. And then he started hosting other shows. So, I appreciate that. And Farad says Dennis's departure and the leaving of a couple other hosts led him away from listening to AM radio. I guess, it's funny. I don't think about Dennis's AM radio, but especially there in Chicago, he was. That Chicago station, WIND, they were so good to us every year. They'd fly us out. We'd do events. We'd have guests. And they were going to do something for the podcast, the company that owned them, but then Dennis ended up not doing a gig there. I don't know. Look, we could do this for weeks, and I probably will. But Corby, other than calling in, what do you think you're going to miss most about the fact that you've now had? I guess tomorrow's Thursday. So tomorrow's going to be the first day where you're supposed to get the show and you're not going to get it. So what's going to be the worst part of not having these Tuesdays and Thursdays anymore?
Missing out on all the laughter. I do a lot of driving. So I drive a lot of miles just by myself, and I would turn on the podcast. Tuesdays and Thursdays, always turn on a new one or just turn on an old one. And it just kept me entertained the whole time. I listen to other podcasts, but Joe Rogan does not take voicemails. Of course, I didn't realize I could leave voicemails for the Bladtcast. That's BLADTCAST.
Thank you very much.
You just told me. But just missing out on that entertainment. I would laugh so much unless Dennis was making fun of me. Then I'd pull over to his shoulder and cry. Yeah. But just it was like camaraderie. It was like I'm driving around with some guys and Lindsey that I like talking to. So it's just that familiar sitting and listening, being entertained. That's what I'm gonna miss the most.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what about you, Sam? Obviously, you have your own podcast empire to proliferate, but what are you going to miss most about not having the show?
I think one of the biggest things I'm going to miss, and I think I shared this with you on Twitter and maybe on the show that we did together, was Dennis's interviewing style. He has been one of the best interviewers that I've ever heard, because one of the things that I never liked at Howard Stern is it seemed like Howard Stern was always jumping in every 5 minutes, and Dennis more or less, and Adam Carolla is the same way. They more or less ask a question and then let their guests just speak and get what they need to say out, and then ask the next question. It's a lot more conversational.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Dennis told me a long time ago, I was like, I can talk to anybody. Maybe one day I'll secretly tell people there's like 2 people he ever wanted to not have as guests, but one of them was surprising. But anyway, he could talk to anybody. And I think that the ease with which he had a conversation, I think that the long form suits him much better than an 8-minute radio interview. And some of the best radio interviews that people talk about are when he would have on Orson or Mark Stein or someone on for an entire hour, because you can really let it breathe then. Peter Noon, that's another great one, And so for me, it was like a masterclass in watching this guy do interviews. And I like a lot of, Sam, you referenced it. I like Howard Stern's long form interviews. He'll talk to somebody for an hour or an hour and a half sometimes, and somebody I'm not interested in, like Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm not interested in, but I heard him interview her, and I'm like, she actually got a lot of interesting things out of her. But you're right. You should always let them talk more. And I learned that a lot from Dennis. And I think that the people that I have talked to, and, look, I think that the Bladtcast is essentially like a half interview show at this point, because I've just had so many great opportunities to interview people for this show or for other places, and then I repurpose them. And I think that's the key, is just like, you don't need to be in such a rush to ask the next question, especially in this format.
Yeah.
So you can really just let it go. And, it's, I think everybody's got good stories to tell, and I think that Dennis always appreciated that. So I think that him continuing doing the interview show it's a great thing for him to keep doing, because that is a great skill set that he has. But important comment to get in from Patty. No offense to the others, but I much preferred Christian guest hosting to Larry O'Connor. And he says Saunders. I guess Deborah Saunders did guest host once or twice with her husband, so I guess that's what she was talking about. But yeah, and Roz JD with if we had Randy Quaid on, like present day Randy Quaid.
Oh my God,
insane. So, they could have talked about, that season of SNL they did together. And Patty has a question that if you're watching, I'll let you read it yourself. And if you're listening to the audio, you're going to miss. I'm just going to say the word no, and then just go on from there. But I appreciated that. But Patty is right. Dennis just shuts up, and I can't, because we've been doing this for an hour and 47 minutes. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us. And Chris points out, Mrs. Dennis Miller option, turn to my podcast. All the best. Yeah, because it's not, you're looking, Dennis is occasionally on. Two of the most listened to episodes are episode 201 and 400. Both have Dennis Miller on. And I think he was also on episode 50 very briefly. But so you'll occasionally hear him, but you'll just mostly have to put up with me. Bladtcast, Bladtcast, Bladtcast.com. Thanks, Christian. Keep on keeping on. See, I love all this. I was just like, I'm just milking this because I have so many people in the live chat. Usually I'm excited if there's 10, but we've been at it for almost 2 hours and it's 32 minutes. So, Corby, we'll hear voicemails from you. I'll encourage you to leave them, and I can have you bring some mirth on this way or another. I don't even know if you're on Twitter. If people want to keep tabs on what makes Corby laugh, how do they do that?
I am not on Twitter anymore. I'm not on Instagram. I'm only on Facebook and Parler. But I don't post that much. I don't know. I guess, I really seek out people's approval. So I guess if people really wanted to hear from me on Facebook and I thought I have enough of an audience, I might post more. But mostly my kids just have to listen to my dad jokes and roll their eyes. You have given me a platform, and I appreciate that. I would also like to say thanks to all the other people, all the people in the chat, everybody that was on. Everybody played a part in the show and the podcast and gave me some good laughs, some good times. So I really appreciate that. And I will leave you some voicemails at the Bladtcast. Is it the same number?
You just call the Dennis Miller number. I know how to check them. And Patty's wondering if, even though you don't post much, do you have a handle on Parler that you would like to share?
I think it's just at Corby Pyatt. I don't. It's Pyatt is my last name.
Yeah, I was messaging our friend Christian Toto that I need to put Parler on ice for a few weeks. It was getting a little dicey in there, and I'm going to be happy to check it out in the new year. It was just, there were too many posts that and it's like if you set your filters to like, well, I don't want anything that has sedition or secession, or it was just getting a little. It was at martial law, and I'm like, oh, this isn't fun for me. I think it'll probably get fun at some point. And Christian Toto, he's a proponent of Parler, and I think it'll be a better place maybe in 2021. So I didn't delete it, but I'm also Christian DMZ on there. I only have one post. Oddly enough, on election day, I just posted a picture that I also posted on Twitter.
I upvoted it, I think. If I didn't, I will.
Yeah, I think it's the only thing that I have on there. But so I'll check back. It wasn't. I didn't like the cut of its jib for a few weeks there, but I think it'll come back around. Anyway, so Corby, we'll hear from you soon. I'll figure out something to drag you in on, check the YouTube version of this video after it's posted. See how many Corby fans there are. See how many people want you to get on Twitter, want you to be posting more. All right. So if people are watching this and they want there to be a Corby fan club, comment down below, and he will see it because he, as he mentioned, seeks your approval.
I do. Okay. Thank you, Christian.
Absolutely.
Sam,
thank you, Corby.
Good one.
Thank you.
All right. And Sam, please give some plugs where people can find you and let you know where you are.
Yeah, at SamW_NDC on Twitter for now, unless I get Shadow Man or something. Also on Parler. Also on Parler at Sam Whitfield. And I am kind of with you, Christian. It's gotten a little dicey. All I pretty much use it for is dumping links to my podcast and whatnot, but I don't really participate on there. I'm trying to maybe see if Rob might want to get on there since he's banned on Twitter as well. But I think all of us who are smart in terms of social media know that it's a bit dicey for right now. But also you can follow the Whitfield Report here on YouTube, youtube.com/Whitfield Report, and on iTunes and wherever else you get your podcasts at. So
well, Sam, thanks for jumping in. It was always fun to have you as a guest, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, whether it be on social media or on each other's shows. Once there start being movies again and movies together, and fun stuff like that.
And for the record, if that guy who is listening to who quit the Bladtcast is watching this, clearly you didn't ever listen to the Bladtcast if you were surprised that Will is somewhat of a liberal.
That's what Will said. It was like, I just don't think you were listening if this one episode made you think that and Will appreciated. You said that Will Sterling is your favorite liberal. So
which I've said for years too. It's kind of it's kind of in a running it's kind of a running gag too, because because a few of my audience members are like, well, how can you stand that Will Sterling guy? He's so liberal. And I'm like, yeah, but he's my favorite liberal.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. No, and I don't know. Look, it used to be easier to have differences of opinion, and it can be, it can make for interesting conversations. A great memory was when Andrew Breitbart guest hosted, and we had the guys from the band Fishbone on, and their lead singer Angelo. Politics could not be further from Andrew's, and they were in the parking lot, like they weren't arguing at all. They were just talking for 30, maybe even 40 minutes after the show ended, just continuing a conversation about politics. And I would have loved to have done more with Andrew and Angelo. But unfortunately, he did pass a short time thereafter. But that, to me, it's definitely some high points of the radio show. That was one, and it was like I wasn't even in the conversation. I was just like, well, look, that's still going on, So yeah. But well, Sam, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and any other holidays you celebrate, especially Life Day for anybody who's a Star Wars fan. We always have to make sure that we wish them a happy Life Day.
Happy Life Day to you too, and happy halls, and give your family my love. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, I'll talk to you soon, Sam. Well, this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate Lindsey being on for the beginning, and everybody who jumped in. And Uvula Scrimshaw points out Will's liberalism comes from a good place, though. I think, it's just, it's how he feels, and he's very honest. It's hard to disagree with that. In any case, there's this conversation can always continue on Twitter, on Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And please stay tuned for more great content from the Bladtcast. We have a virtual Christmas party that I think right now is scheduled for this Friday, the 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, but subject to change. But if you're a fan of the way that the Bladtcast used to be, including the guy who doesn't listen to the show anymore, he'll really enjoy that episode because of some of the people who will be with us when we do that show. So that is something that is at least penciled in at the moment for next Friday. Some great friends. And Lisa Ballard, thank you for the great years with Dennis. Glad to find you here, Lisa. Glad you came in. Always want to give some shout outs to everybody. Like I said, the conversation easily continues. And as I referenced earlier, if you're listening to the audio version of this, we're going to end the show, and then you're going to hear one of the big rewinds, and then you're going to hear the test that Lindsey and I did last week that ended up going like 20, 30 minutes. And there was some fun stuff in there. We basically practiced for this. This was like the dress rehearsal for this show. But I appreciate everybody's contributions throughout the course of these last couple hours and the last couple years of the podcast, the Dennis Miller Option, and all the years of the radio show going back to 2007, which I was there on day one. I wasn't in the studio in New York with Dennis and Sal, but I was always there listening from LA. And comments from me will always stretch the show out a little bit longer. I mean, compliments for me, Humble Painter. Thank you for being the glue that keeps us together. I appreciate to do that. And then thanks, Christian, wanting you back. Back for more of the Bladtcast, like I was saying, will definitely be it should be this Friday, but we post episodes every week. Sometimes me and the guys might talk politics. That might not be for all of you, but if you're open to the conversation, check it out. If not, I do a lot of musician interviews. I do a lot of comic book creator interviews, TV interviews. I'm going to actually repurpose a few of those. Somebody mentioned in the chat that they enjoyed Dennis's conversations with Alan Zweibel. I talked to Alan Zweibel for AfterBuzz TV earlier in the year. I talked to him for almost an hour and a half. I think it was an hour and a half, and I want to repurpose that. I've got some other good content from comic book and cartoon creators that I'm going to get out there in the weeks ahead. And Jason makes the excellent point. I grew up from the no good teenage son, Dak. Yes, my excellent character for the TV show that I'm wearing the t-shirt for. which is the T-shirt, of course, which is the TV show, of course, where I actually met my wife wearing that terrible wig. I should probably dig out the footage from that old show because there's some really funny visuals, and boy, was I a terrible actor. Which is something I talked about this week to promote the Tom Kelly Show. I was a guest on that this week. If you want to check that out, just go to Tom Kelly Show. You'll be able to find it. We talked a little bit about some of those things. Jacob Downey, you want to interview me on my show? You want to interview me on your show? You know how to find me. I will always talk about myself to anyone. In any case, this has been fun. As the title says, all good things must come to an end. And that includes doing almost twice as much Bladtcast as probably anybody wanted. But 26 of you are still watching. That's the thing I don't get. So stay tuned. Go to Bladtcast.com, Bladtcast.com, at Bladtcast on Twitter, the Bladtcast on Facebook. And we will see you next time on the Bladtcast. Bye, everybody.